Hello guys, welcome to another podcast by Rupeeting. Today we have Sagar, Ayush, and Tanvi with us. And just a disclaimer: anything that we talk about in this podcast is not investment advice. All of that is for entertainment and educational purposes only. And today Ayush has written a very exciting topic that he's very keen on introducing to us. So Ayush, could you please start off?
On the contrary, it's quite a boring topic because it's the one product that I think no one really looks forward to engaging in and maintaining, but everyone just has to. It's a bank account. So I think what age did you get your bank account at? And what's the, let's say, top three banks that you can think of at the top of your head? Just like that.
Which one are we doing
HDF,
first?
ICICI, Punjab
Kotak.
National Bank.
Okay.
That's interesting. Sagar,
HDFC, ICICI, Kotak.
Lux,
Same HDFC, ICICI, Kotak.
Laksh is trying to be cool. Okay, he has accounts in Punjab, Sindh, Canara, SBI.
So he said which comes to your mind, not which is your account.
My first account was in PNB, so that's why I have like a special thing.
yeah,
At what age? So?
connection.
At what age? Like my parents created one for me when I was young, and then I don't know when
That
exactly.
turned into your account later.
Yeah, but now there's no money in it for the spend.
So it's just like a dormant account.
Sukanya
Yeah.
investments have gone to the drain.
But
Tax.
Sukanya has spent all the money. There's no money in that.
Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting that we've all mentioned national banks. There's like what, 35, 40 of them in the country. But there's also like a good set of 20 or odd regional banks that are set up within their own states, service state-wise needs. And they don't really break out of that mold of theirs usually. But there is one player that did, and it started from like super humble beginnings pre-independence in like a small part of Trivandrum in Kerala, and now it's trying to at least catch up to various national banks across the board and competing with the likes of IDFC First and Canara and the like. So we're talking about Federal Bank. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Do you have an account?
Very.
Federal
I
Bank?
do not.
I
Just
do.
because I'm a Mallu does not mean I have a bank in a Mallu bank.
But you check all the boxes. See, your family, you had
Yeah.
remittances. You all are
Yeah.
Malayali. You all went
Yeah.
to the Middle East.
Yeah. Quite a stereotype. Yeah,
Buy
that's
money.
true. But yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately true, right? And it's also a fun fact, like, so Mallu's going to the Gulf is like a stereotype for generations now. But what's interesting is that the money they send back, specifically to the state of Kerala, makes up for about 20% of the GDP of the state. And about
What?
80% of the Indians that live in the Gulf are from Kerala.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean,
Of
who
course.
else? The rest would be Gujaratis. Those are the only
Not
two
at
people.
all. They flooded the US and Canada.
Yeah,
And
but there's a lot of businesses set in the Middle East that are powered by Mallu families and Gujarati families. Like huge chains of hypermarkets, hotels, grocery
Lulu.
stores, stuff like that. Lulu is us, and there's a Kimji's and all of that from the Gujarati side of things. So yeah, a lot of money comes in from the Middle East to Kerala, and one of the preferred banks, at least back in 80s, 90s, and all, used to be Federal Bank because they used to be accessible to most people who lived in the cities. They had specific cross-border remittance offers that they'd get, easier to access the money when they have to send it back to parents who live back in Kerala. So that used to be a major part of business for them, and it made up for, I think, around 2010, it made up for about 12% of all deposits. So they're known for being the Kerala bank and they're known for being the NRI bank. But they decided to, I think, break out of that mold in about 2010. Uh, owing to the entry of the famous Mr. Srinivasan, Sham Srinivasan. I am Calcutta graduate,
Is he a
and
Mallu as well?
yes, very much Mallu. Yes, he
But why
lives
don't
and
you
breathes coconut oil.
then? I mean,
Because
what
technically
bank do
I'm not from Kerala, right? We HDFC because we were from Bombay, so we didn't have access to Federal Bank when we moved out of the country. So we
Hmm.
just had HDFC as a the option,
But did you
and
see
this
a
is back
Federal
in 2000.
Bank branch where you lived in Muscat or whatever?
So no, because Indian banks technically don't set up branches there, but
They do.
they can work.
HDFC has, and
Not
there's so many.
at least not in Oman. Like the part of the Middle East that I was from was fairly restrictive in terms of what businesses can set up outside of India, outside of Oman into Oman. So we wouldn't get the luxury of setting up an Indian branch or ATM of that sort. But there were
No,
these
if you have
exchange
to
places.
send money,
Yeah.
that's what's going to. If you have to
Uh,
send money, where do you go?
Yeah, so there used to be these exchange spots. It'll be very prominent, and it'll just be like a normal. It'll look like a bank branch, and there'll be multiple counters. And based on what your bank branch is on the other side of the pond, they'll send money there through your Oman ka bank account. So that cross-border relation was very strong with Federal Bank even back then. Kettle Bank and Catholic Syrian used to be the two major ones that people would send money from the Middle East to Kerala. So they'd send like little hard cash used to go into those counters and like used to be sent back home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that must have been so like hectic?
yeah. Because at least until 2000, like I was there from 2006 to 2018. At least for half of that time, there wasn't really much innovation in terms of digitizing that process. So you'd have to withdraw money from your Oman bank account, go there with cash, and time the exchange rate in such a way that you get the best out of it. It
Fuck.
used to be a tedious process, yeah.
If you're
But
late
now,
in
through
traffic,
everything digital. Sorry,
if you get stuck in traffic or something and the exchange rate is
then you're fucked. Yeah, then you're fucked.
to wait for like
Basically, yeah,
months.
But
too
how
late.
much do you lose in this thing, transaction fees, percentage
I don't,
wise? So,
I don't remember clearly now, but it wasn't too much of a shell out. Like maybe under 1-2%.
but yeah, you're not paying taxes, so fuck off. Pay
Yeah,
it.
we didn't have income tax. Yeah, so it wasn't really. Well,
What, you don't have to pay taxes on that?
until when I was there was no income tax in my part of the Middle East. Even actually, until recently, Dubai also didn't have it. But now they're
Wow.
also planning on kickstarting that stuff. Yeah. So now they're imposing like a VAT system and all of that. But until then, there were no direct or indirect taxes because the wealth fund or the treasury was enough. They didn't need money from the public. Now they do. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of benefits, I think, right? So neither do NRIs have to pay any tax on their income from the Middle East, but when they deposit their money back in Federal Bank in Kerala, they don't have to pay interest on the deposit interest that they gain also. So that's also tax free. So they basically get a 5% yearly just by depositing money, and this money will be to the tune of like anywhere between 1 and 2 crores per person in INR. Like that's under 2 crores was the cumulative amount people used to send. Because I mean, if you're in Kuwait and stuff like that, the exchange rate at that time used to be 200 rupees for every one dinar, which is mad. That's the highest across the world. So
Yeah.
yeah, huge market, and Sham Srinivasan clearly saw that happening and saw the position in which Federal Bank had placed itself just by default being the Kerala Bank. So they capitalized on that, offered far more services, treated the NRI with more respect than they probably did earlier because the trend used to be that they'd be sent to the Middle East to gain money because they'd be good at manual labor. So they'd be set up at factories, they'll be set up at refineries, they'll go in as electricians, laborers, truck drivers, stuff like that.
Hmm.
But that trend shifted and then they started becoming corporate employees, started setting up businesses. then the money coming in was much higher. So capitalizing on that trend, they started offering more services to the NRIs, and then eventually, from becoming 12% of all of their deposits, it became 28 to 30% towards 2023. That's one of their largest sources of deposits now.
And what is this time frame? Like from 2010 to now?
Yeah,
Or
2010 to 2023. Yes, so about 12 to 13 years time, they incrementally got in more and more. So in terms of absolute numbers, if
yeah.
7,000 crores was the amount that they had got in deposits back in 2010, it's now 76,000 crores. So more than 10x growth. Yeah, in just that segment.
But that segment as a proportion of total revenue would have changed
Yeah,
from
possibly.
now, right?
Yeah.
So that was 30% of the business
Is
you said
everyone
back in
lagging or is it just me?
just you. So
Wait, sorry. I think, yeah, now you're back. Sorry. Go ahead.
so that would be 30% of revenue back in FY10, but what is it
Yeah.
like now?
So in terms of revenue, I think they aren't seeing a lot of loan book going towards or like advances going towards the NRS. So in general, it used to be low, and now it's gotten lower. Their lending book or advance
No, not
is
lending.
mostly
I'm saying the total remittances as a part of the total business.
that's a good question. Maybe we'll have to check the numbers on that. But remittances have increased in terms of them gaining market share for sure. Like they've become the largest in the country in terms of Middle Eastern cross-border remittances across the country. So it's a 30% market share that they have there. So that maybe was 20 back in 2010 or lower, 17 to 20.
Nice.
Mm.
So what's next for Federal Bank? Why is it still exciting?
Why is it still exciting? So not
I
only
have
do they
a
have that, yeah,
question for Rich before that because he's so awfully quiet.
he's making notes
I was
like the
gonna
studious boy that he is.
So Lux, there was an episode of bank fraud in Tarak Mehta. Mr. Tony who had committed fraud and that had come in the papers. Bide had read about it. Which
Oh
bank
yeah.
was associated in that?
Uh, अरे fuck, I know that international 1 crore का lottery का thing ना.
बैंक का नाम.
अरे यार, I don't remember the name of the bank.
It's okay. It's called
What is
Lena
it?
Dena.
I
What is
don't
it
know
called?
that.
Lena Dena Bank.
Wow.
Sure, it's Lena Dena Bank.
Yeah, as far as I remember, it was Lena. Lena Dena or Len Den, one of those.
I think it's Lane Dane Bank.
One of the two it was. I don't
But that's
remember
because
exactly.
Lena Dena would be awfully close to
नहीं
Dena
लेना
Bank
देना.
itself, right?
No, Lena Dena
Oh,
Bank
so it
only.
is wordplay.
Arey, that's what they do. But even like there's a Ramsung company in it for TVs.
Tony
Samsung.
TV.
Tony TV.
Tony. Oh God.
It's very. अरे there was Whirlpool का also there was something. I forgot now. उसका fridge ही ice cool. No, ice pool or something. उसका fridge ही sells to Babita ji.
Okay.
Babita
Sorry,
Ji's.
which bank accounts do you have now? Coming back to the topic.
Me?
Everybody.
One. I just have the single.
Which one? HDFC.
HDFC. Savings account.
Tanvi.
अभी account number भी बोलते हैं आयुष.
I mean, I'm just saying CASA wise, it's the SA.
HDFC 000019 IFSC code.
Oh shit. Saga actually knows it.
I have three banks actually. My French account is still open, so I'm with
She owns
BNP.
3 banks. She doesn't have bank accounts.
Which one is this? Which is the French bank?
BNP Paribas.
Ugh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's because they
HDFC.
have such a large operation in India, right? So it would have been easier for your parents to send you money.
No, my parents sent me money through HDFC. What?
Okay.
it doesn't
पेरेंट्स
matter
और
which
रोकना बेचते थे भाई.
account you have. You
No,
send,
but
you
from
deposit in HDFC, it goes there anyway. So, like I had a NatWest, so it doesn't matter. You can
A lot of
send.
people are
but
choosing HSBC now because of how much like a European presence they have, but like because there's branches now in India that are pretty accessible. Apparently, like if you do that, it's easier.
HSBC is like shady, right? The last time I read
Is it?
about it,
No.
they
Is
were
it?
involved in some money laundering thing in the south.
Banks,
In
so yeah,
south.
every bank is.
Every bank does भाई.
No, but this bank actually came under like fire because they were doing some drug money business.
You saw that
HSBC,
Netflix
really?
documentary. Oh, that's why you're saying
Hmm.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
understood. So
What I
PN
mean,
and
HDFC and PNB.
PNB. Yeah. Lux. Lux is the exciting one. He's got a lineup, bro. It's like the
इधर
Sasta
इधर ही
lineup.
रहेगा.
इतना गंदा 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 सब है इनके पास.
ये. Now I can't show the number and all. What is this tick?
Canara
Canara,
Bank.
Canada.
unappealing
I've
card
never
also.
met anyone with a Canara
And
Bank
this is
account.
the platinum card, Sagar.
So bad. Dude.
उनका मैं नॉर्मल कार्ड दिखाएगा ना ऐसे लगता है कि वो मोनोपोली वाला कार्ड है. A credit
Canada.
card also looks like shit.
And which ones?
And घर पे then there is Kotak and HDFC, but I use only Canada.
You don't feel embarrassed or
You
what?
chose
Paying
I,
Canada. What?
somewhere.
no,
Guys, we
I
can't put
told
this
you.
shit on
मैं
banks.
ऐसा
Who
शांति से
cares?
ऐसा निकाल के दे देता है कार्ड वापस ले लेते हैं.
लाउंज पे तो दिखाना भी मत. तू ऐसे बाहर
That's
निकाल के सब लोग बोलेंगे अरे ये नहीं चलेगा ये नहीं चलेगा.
it's too embarrassing, bro. But they
But
don't
nobody has.
agree on it to change.
Oh, I also had one more
Nobody
account,
else?
guys. I forgot to tell you. In Paris, I had in France, I had this bank account called N96, which is like a digital bank.
उसका तो
Ooh.
अपन मास्क बना के पहनते हैं भाई.
No, N96 is like a neo slash digital bank. And then,
Oh.
so the thing was that if you sign up for it, then you get 50 euros in your bank, like immediately.
Of
So
course. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And then
What
it
is the
was
Neo
easier.
Bank? Like,
Your
I
bank is a
think
bank, like no physical location, only like virtual presence.
But what is so good about the N96? Like, what are the other benefits other than free money? App
No, like
interface.
no, it's N26, not 96, right?
and I don't know,
I think it's
one of
N26.
yeah.
N26.
So basically, it was very easy to make payments, like because they had it had a very widespread network. So places
Yeah.
where my HDFC bank account ka card wouldn't work, I would use the N26 wala account, and then I could make payments through Apple Pay with it. And the card was very cool. It's like a transparent card with just numbers on it, so it looked very sexy.
I
And
think
so
that's
you
basic
see,
proposition of neo or like digital banks now, right? It just has to be sexy.
yeah.
And
yeah,
people
I
will
was
buy
like,
it.
what?
It
Because
was just
everybody.
Somewhat tacky, but this would have been looking nice, this N26.
You've
No,
seen
it was a
Naman's
very
recent credit card over.
no.
It's
Why
damn
would you
weird.
show
It's
us?
just on white. He showed it to you, bhai.
हाँ क्या?
It's just plain white and उसके ऊपर silver कुछ है. There's no design, nothing.
He's
No,
got a
this
scam.
card.
Which one does he have?
Kotak.
No, that 5,000 रुपए का credit limit वाला कार्ड लिया था उसने वो वाला
That is
सस्ता.
different. That is one card.
One card.
One card is also Federal Bank ka backing only.
One card looks nice. Black color card.
One card's doing well. It's one of the largest now, like in terms of the co-branded credit card models. But we will get to
No, but
that.
N26 was really cute, guys. It was like a transparent thing, but in the light it would look like a bluish card,
Ooh.
and then it had like silver thing on it. And everybody in my college had it. Like everybody used to use it. and then you could directly send money without any like processing fee. So if you're going out to party and then
Oh,
have to split the bill, then you could just like send it to each other's accounts. So that
that's interesting.
Splitwise.
was
But did you have
Splitwise.
like an tracker and stuff in it?
Yeah, you could track your expenses and stuff on the app.
And could you take loans on it?
I don't know. I mean,
जरूरत नहीं पड़ता सागर.
अरे वो तन्वी पवा रहा है इसलिए बाकी-
Cheating आता है.
I mean, I think people
Cash.
had a credit limit, maybe, but I'm not sure about loans and all.
because that's the usual progression for neobanks, right? They start with like something as basic as making payments through UPI or whatever. Then they get like expense trackers in and give you like a cool interface. Then you've got a card, and then they try to sell you loans, because at the end of it, a bank, neobank, whatever institution in finance won't make money unless they lend you money and actually make a spread. So
Yeah.
then they get into loans, and then obviously then you've got like investments and mutual funds and blah blah,
Yeah.
which now these guys have reached, right? Like at least in the Indian ecosystem, all of these Jupiter, Phi, and all of them have started like mutual fund investments, and they've moved from just banking to offering other services as well.
Yeah.
Have you used any of those? Any Indian neobanks or digital banking? Digital the
Not
shit.
yet.
Like I use HDFC, it's clunky. I'd
How
rather
is it?
physically pay somebody than use HDFC.
The
But
website
how
is
is
bad.
it
Like it looks bad.
bank and a neo bank?
What is the
Huh?
difference?
Between a digital bank and a neo bank.
So I think in HDFC's case, like let's take Sagar's example, right? It's just a digital interface applied over HDFC's existing network. So just like a way for you to access money instead of going to the branch. But a neobank is preferably going to be completely digital, and that's going to be its main offering, like being tech savvy, being
Yeah.
digitally forward, as they like to call it in the industry. So that's going to be their main offering and USP, whereas they won't have a lot of physical assets, they won't have branches, they won't have a huge team backing the entire thing. It'll all be run digitally, automatically, and will have like cooler features than your traditional bank would.
Hmm.
Jupiter would be a
And for the same
neobank, and
reasons, yeah,
Kotak
Jupiter
811 would be a
5,
digital.
yeah, exactly.
But I think
Okay.
Kotak
So
is still
all,
doing a decent job at the online onboarding and like ensuring that if you want to create an account, you've got it done within like 20 minutes. Because there was a time
yeah,
when I think a couple of years back, I wanted to create a secondary account. I had an HDFC, and I was like, I had a Bank of Baroda, but obviously that was not useful at all. So I needed one more. And then I was like, which one do I apply for? So I was like looking at the processes of which one is the simplest to apply for online
yeah,
and requires the least amount of documentation, because it was also during COVID or something. So
yeah.
Kotak turned out to be beautiful in terms of onboarding and just the card reaching your place. Like SBI ka, I've applied for a card like, I don't know, 2 years back. It's still under process. Apparently, they have a
What are you
shortage of.
saying?
Yeah, they keep saying shortage है आजकल तो नहीं मिल रहा लोगों को. I was like,
Apparently,
but I
London.
can
Shortage of
have.
material to make the cards.
No, they just don't have cards. I don't know what reason.
वो बिटकॉइन है क्या लिमिटेड का सप्लाई हुआ
Semiconductor का shortage भी.
But even
Oh,
HDFC has a very
chips.
good digital banking experience. And now
Really?
they have loans and
I
stuff that you
think Sagar was
I
just
think the
shitting on them,
average
no?
Yeah, I too don't like them, man. Like even their
app.
like whatever digital like HDFC has tried, right? Like even securities, for example, if you it's terrible to
Terrible.
use. Like if you buy a stock, right, it first will show up in something called order book. Then from no, it will show up in trade book. From trade book,
Hmm.
after some time, it shifts to order book. From order
Order book.
book, it goes into your portfolio. So you're supposed to like look for your stock after you like transacted. Like you don't know where it will be. You have to find it. It's like अभी ढूंढ के देखा. तो बेचना है तो पहले वो ढूंढना पड़ता है कि है किधर भाई ये ऐप में.
अरे अरे
उसके
अरे.
बाद जाके उसको बेचो.
Whereas in like a kite or something like that, it just you buy and it shows up in positions and then it's like
Hmm.
in your holdings.
But that's the whole thing, right? Like the
But
incumbents
that's
haven't
the
been able to do a good job at like transforming themselves into digital first entities or even appeal that target segment, and that's where
but
they lose on to newer players.
can you compare HDFC Securities and Zerodha ka interface? Because Zerodha only focuses on that. HDFC has
That doesn't
tons of
mean
other
that they
things.
can just do a shit job at HDFC Securities,
Not
no?
shit job, but of course, Zerodha will have to be way better than what
No, but
First
HDFC.
thing
what
is,
is HDFC focusing on that you're saying is difficult to convert into a good digital interface?
Sorry,
For example, what? They're doing equities, they're doing FNO. क्या है? Complicated क्या है इसमें?
but their
Yeah.
main business is banking, no? Like, so
That is not the point. HDFC Securities is a completely different entity. It is a subsidiary of HDFC Bank, sure, but it is a separate business, right? It has got nothing to do. HDFC Securities, you can't take a loan, right? You can't transfer money to me. So there's no banking interference on the securities app anyway, right? And in terms of money, they've got deep pockets, man. I think it's easy to just hire a few good product managers and designers and get the
yeah,
shit.
precisely. But I think that's not something that most of these bigger ones are focusing on, barring the exception of Kotak, as you mentioned.
Yeah, but then
Whereas,
that's the smart
yeah,
thing to do, right? Like, is to one realize that, and in every country you see like digital guys taking over the traditional incumbent players. That's
yeah,
happened in securities already. Broking, you've seen new players dominate the market now. The old guys are nowhere in the picture when it comes
yeah.
to market share by subscribers, except maybe an Angel. That's the only one
Angel,
that's
yeah,
well. Again, that's not a bank, so they've got a relatively agile. Uh, Situation compared to the banks. But even in banks, like I won't be surprised if like that's what happened with PSUs and private banks, right? Private banks just took over and PSUs kept losing market share because of the exact same thing. You've just got a bad experience or interface, but physically. Now the whole
yeah,
thing is just bad experience and interface digitally, and then new banks will just take over. But the smart thing to do in such cases is just something like a federal does, right? Where you realize that this is not our game. This is the winds are against us. We've been losing at this. We don't have the mindset to be that agile or be that sexy or be that cool or rebrand and stuff like that. So might as well just provide the tech stack or the base for other people to build on.
yeah.
Right.
Which is exactly what they've done, right? I think they've created some 300
Rather than getting
APIs.
killed, you go with the flow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've done a great job. In fact, you mentioned previously where Kotak's end-to-end time was about like what, 20 minutes to set up your account. Federal has almost a record time of 5 to 7 minutes. So they've really stepped up their game in terms of the tech stack all over in the past 5 years
Yeah.
to facilitate this whole neobank partnership or just a trend that we're seeing.
But I think that's the thing, right? Like they must have realized that even if we've done it in 5 minutes, like the entire onboarding
Yeah,
process, Federal Bank as a name is not really appealing to that
yeah,
18-year-old who's just excited about getting a bank account and his first bank account.
exactly.
He's
Correct.
not going to be excited about Federal Bank at all. Like he's not going to get the app. He may get the onboarding, but he's not going to get the expense tracker. He's not going to get that Splitwise Ola feature. He's not going to get
Yeah,
all of that because Federal's not going to build it. Because it's going to be useless for a guy sitting in Dubai to see, oh, you spent 20% of your money on shopping. It's going to be
yeah.
like, it's
It's
not
not the
relevant.
market.
So they just realized that I think that having that cognizance of we are not here and this is not our place is a good
Yeah,
start for any incumbent.
yeah, absolutely.
So, what progress has Federal made on neobanks?
Okay, so just a couple of numbers. They have made about 75 plus partnerships across the neobank space. Some with Indian neobanks, some with abroad. But basically, they've created about 300 uh, APIs, which is across the board in terms of whether it's setting up an account to getting a credit card to tracking your expenses and all of that. And then they allow these neobanks to use it on their interface. So the main ones being Jupiter and Five and Neo,
But I think you should
NIY.
simplify the whole like concept as well, right? Like, okay, so these new
Yeah,
banks or new digital players, VC funded,
yeah,
don't really have a banking license. To operate a bank, you
yeah,
need a banking license. Banking licenses have not been awarded to anybody new since a very long time. So only the traditional players have the banking license. Now, if you want to build a neobank, what you typically do is rather than getting a license yourself, you build a sexy looking interface on top of an existing bank account. So if Ayush is signing up for a neobank account, he will actually download the neobank app. However, his account opening will be with a Federal or ICICI or HDFC, or not HDFC, but one of these banks underlying it. So
Yeah.
you're actually a customer of Federal Bank, but your interface is of Jupiter or Phi or
Jupiter.
whatever.
Yeah.
So you get great tracking, you get sexier cards, you get better interface. However, underlying your money is safe in a registered, licensed bank, established bank like a federal bank, which is governed by the RBI. So there is safety as well, but there is fulfillment of modern needs as well at the same time. So any bank that has to let somebody sit on top of it has to have a great tech stack in terms of, if your account is there, the ability to access information and data on that account and have it converted into better interface. That tech stack is usually done, or conversion is done through something called APIs. So Federal Bank will offer APIs. Neobanks will use those APIs, convert that data into design or data or interface or statistics or whatever, and give you information which is much more easy to comprehend and use.
So I have a
And I
question.
think, yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Why don't banks just get like a better tech team and do this for themselves instead of like partnering with a new bank and then pay them, and then the VCs are funding these new banks? Like, why not just invest in a better?
Well, there's two, three reasons to it. One is when you're an established company, it's very difficult to move your entire operations towards something new. It usually comes at a cost of the old. So you're killing yourself and building yourself at the same time, which is very hard to do. Um, so most banks become averse to it. Second, I think there's a large change in the way talent is hired in traditional banks versus neobanks. So no HDFC or ICICI is going to be willing to pay 1.5 to 2 crores for a product manager, to hire a product manager and give them ESOPs additionally and match the kind of payouts that neobanks would do. So I think traditionally their mindset is not built for new age hiring at all. So
Hmm.
they're not able to attract that talent. So the best talent will usually land up with a Cred or a Jupiter, but not go to an HDFC. Um, and additionally, I think in terms of just the sheer size and scale of the bank, it is very difficult to start implementing things and changing things. So if HDFC has to change their entire interface, the amount of approvals required, the amount of, this is our template, this is our brand, you have to stick to this. They're not willing to experiment and take those steps as fast as newer people would. And even if they do, the newer guys are in a place where it is okay to glitch. It is okay for them to have interfaces that fail at times, or that don't really deliver. There's nothing to lose because you're on a very small base. HDFC is the largest bank in the country at this point in time, private bank. And even a small glitch is going to affect millions of customers immediately. So they're
Yeah.
usually hence not able to make that transition. They try,
Yeah.
but they suck. Like even HDFC, like tried it with their recent one was with financial services, where they launched Sky or something, which
Hmm.
was just the logo will make you feel like not downloading it, and that's the most basic thing you can get right. And if the logo is not impressing me, the app is surely not going to impress anybody, right? It's just poor job.
Yeah. I mean, how bad was the logo? Like, if you don't feel like downloading, was it really that
See,
So
bad?
I see
bad.
the logo. It is disgusting.
Look at HDFC, just normal HDFC का internet banking वाला interface.
Yeah.
So you can draw a correlation there itself.
Hmm. That's
Like that,
absolutely
that
trash.
app is so bad, such a bad
But
app.
all banks, even PNB has a very shitty interface. Like that is.
And you, I don't know how do you do this influencer shit where they show you the. That's what it looks
Hmm.
like. So it doesn't
Yeah.
tell you anything. Like
It looks like a automobile company or like truck company.
Book a ride with Sky HDFC Auto.
yeah. So
DTH.
everyone, but a lot of people are doing this, right? Like this whole super app where they have everything on one platform. but
Yeah, but
most of
like
the
it's
Yeah.
better
time,
to first start small, get customers to
yeah,
like you, and then expand into stuff, right? Like Jupiter, like all of these neobanks are doing. They start with one feature, keep adding features depending on what users want. So
yeah,
even Jupiter has this really cool thing where they have this one Trello board which is actually open for public to put in their suggestions on what features they want. So they can say that, hey, I want like a splitwise like feature, or I want to whatever, I want loans against my mutual fund, or they'll keep putting in feature ideas, and their team actually considers them, works on them, doesn't work on them, looks at the popularity of how much that feature is wanted, looks at feasibility, and then implements. Versus one of these banks which are like a full-fledged financial powerhouse, they'll say sab kuch ghusa hua andar, right? Which becomes a problem.
that's what she said. But I think one of the
Unnecessary.
cooler features of Jupiter also is they have that whole saving thing, right? Like where you spend, let's say the actual product is certain amount, but you pay a little like, huh? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty cool. Like it doesn't really
But
make a
that's
difference. Like
stupid, bro.
yeah, but
I,
like whatever incentive someone has to even attempt to start saving, and if it's looking like you're making a big difference in terms of your expenditure habits, I think that's what they've done well, and that's the whole offering of these neobanks. It's like making you like banking, which is a hard thing to do.
I mean, would
Hmm.
you like banking if after every transaction 50 paise ka message you're getting, yo 50 paise or 2
It's just
rupees
showing up
or
on the
2?
app, right? Like it's not like a shitty thing where HDFC sends you a message. It's a nicer looking interface, and it's not targeted to people who are accustomed to the traditional form of banking. It's targeting the, so they're calling it the salaried millennial, right? Where you've just entered the workforce. You're making a fair bit of money, like enough to, because most of you are like us aren't paying rent. So we have enough to save, and we're looking for a cooler place to save it.
So you would save your money in a newer bank than an actual bank. That's what you're
One
saying.
second, but tell me one thing, Ayush. This whatever that 50 paisa whatever goes, it stays in your account only, no? Or it goes to
No.
Jupiter,
So Jupiter
then you
invested
get an
into a
interest.
gold ETF.
I think it
Ah,
goes
During
to
it,
ETF, or it goes to like liquid mutual funds or something. It
yeah.
goes into an investment product.
But
Um,
this it's seamless from
yeah,
you,
yeah,
from them taking that 50 paise to it being invested. You don't have to do the effort, which is
yeah, yeah.
what
Like, I think there
they've
was some
done.
other company which started roundup investing, but with
Yeah,
this thing, DG Gold, uh,
yeah, yeah.
which was digital gold, which was like a terrible investing option. But it's just the ease of investing that takes over rather than
hmm.
the returns. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. So coming back to federal and why and what kind of strides they've made. So I think cut to now, let's just take the past year of performance that they've seen. With in terms of neobanks, now I have this. So they have three categories of neobank partnerships. One is their co-branded credit cards, which is where one card, Fi and Scapia comes into play.
Hmm.
From having no context to now, they have a 77% market share in this entire field. And in just the past year, the number of cards issued have grown by 3 times, and the spending on those cards have grown by 6 times year on year. I'm sure it's a very small base, but the
Yeah,
growth
like how big is the
has
market?
been, yeah, it won't be too large, but still, like the fact is that they're making a dent, and Federal is coming in equally in terms of branding as much as Fi and One Card is. Like more people are getting to know that Federal is the one backing these guys. So that's the co-branded credit card space. Then there's savings with Jupiter and Fi, where they have a 22% market share, making them the leaders there as well. Where the run rate has been 4.5 lakh new accounts being opened every month in the past year, and that accounts for 75% of all new accounts opened in Federal Bank's entire universe. So a lot of driving force in terms of new accounts, although the balance in those accounts will be like 5,000 rupees, like that's the average amount that we're seeing.
but I think that's
But still,
also like I would look at it as a positive, given the fact that most of these accounts will be the younger crowd.
yeah, yeah,
There are two
exactly.
primary issues with the account balances being low. One is that neobanks currently have the secondary account status; they're not primary
Yeah,
accounts. Hence, the
Hmm.
account balance is low because that's your parking money there.
correct.
So you'll receive money in your account, but then shift a little bit to a neobank and whatever, spend through that or blah blah. The other thing being that
Exactly.
these customers are usually younger customers who are getting appealed by the whole proposition and not the older ones. So in
Yeah.
that case, you just have to wait for another probably 5, 10, 15 years for them to become older and start making more money and see
Yeah.
your. Matlab, I think you'll grow with your customers. It's not like you'll
Which
remain
is why I
low.
think they've timed it very well, right? The whole
Yeah,
transition, they've timed it well. Where now it's 5,000, but once they get into the habit of using this sort of interface and using the system of saving, the
yeah,
amount will multiply for sure. So these are the two main features they have, but there's also like personal lending or personal loans that we're seeing, with Paisa Bazaar being the one that Federal Bank is backing. And there also, in terms of digital personal loans, they have a 70% market share there as well. Where in in just the past year, the number of accounts have grown by 100 times and growth in loan balance by 82 times. Now again, we have no context because they've only given us growth numbers. They haven't given us absolute figures yet because it's very probably really, really tiny. But just the immense potential that they're seeing, to the tune of which Federal Bank suggests that in the next decade or so, they will see an incremental addition of 25% to deposits coming in solely from neobank partnerships, and a 50% growth in terms of lending book just by neobank partnerships, which is more than just a dent made by these
yeah.
so-called newbies.
But I think to Tanvi's point of earlier, like the beauty of Federal not having to do any of the selling, like Federal
Yeah.
acting as a base, is also in the fact that they don't have to go ahead and sell to these people. Let
Yeah.
neobanks raise money, let them burn money, let them do the selling, let them do the building. These guys will just sit, bro, on a
Sit back.
hammock.
They're making more money than the neobanks would be in all
It's
of this
full
because they're
value, dude.
burning
ऐसे
less.
beach on a
Yeah,
hammock, मस्त water आ रहा है, पी रहा है, दे रहा है वो, मस्त.
yeah.
Oh,
But then you're saying that there's no risk involved. Like if
no,
I'm
there is, of
partnering,
course.
Of course.
what are the
There
risks
is
involved?
risk involved because neobanks are new, and then like, what if they're involved in like careless lending and they go bust on their loan book or something happens? There is risk, but like I'm sure that risk is also contained by the fact that one federal bank would also diversify its loan book, right? It's not going to say that 100% of my loan book is going to be channeled through neobanks. They will
Yeah.
have their traditional sources and this on the side, because neobanking is still very nascent and is still a smaller proportion of the overall ecosystem. So they can contain their exposure from that perspective. And the other thing they can also do is, at a sort of uh, bank level, not at a bank level, I think even like these neobanks and VC funded players, they can choose, rather than giving it to everybody, they can just pick and choose who they are partnering with on a larger basis. Like not just partner with everybody new coming in. So if they think cred is credible, then yeah, sure, ramp up on that partnership and disburse more amounts of loan to cred for their customers. If they think some new player like that Zest Money is gonna go down the drain, they'll say, "Fuck off, Zest Money doesn't get anything."
Which is
Go to
actually a
some bank.
great point you mentioned, because Sham Srinivasan is very vocal about the fact that they're very particular about the kind of partnerships they set up. So if they've chosen these 75 plus partnerships that they've made, they've done the kind of due diligence required to ensure that they won't just go bust overnight and they won't have a significant impact on, let's say, their NPAs and stuff like that.
Mhm.
In fact, most of their lending goes to corporate. So it's like a 60-40 split that they've maintained over the years, mota moti 2-3%. And even in the retail lending, neobanks maybe make a dent of single digit percentages. Yeah, they've
Hmm.
pretty much de-risked themselves, even though they've gone all in the neo-banking space.
So so now federal banks, are they gonna completely like be into that space and then leave out this whatever retail private banking that they're doing, or
No, no, no. Of course
this is
not.
gonna be like one
Like
arm
that's
of
just start. Yeah, it's just going to be one arm. So digital banking in general is going to be on the forefront, but how
yeah.
much of that is running their business? I mean, it's yet to be seen. Neobanks will definitely not make that much of a dent in the shorter time span, of course.
Yeah.
But their
Good
core
to see.
business, which
I think
is,
it will grow with the neobanks
yeah,
evolution in the overall system, right? Like neobanks currently
exactly,
are a smaller proportion of the
yeah,
overall pie. as they mature and become more prudent and those that survive grow, then you'll obviously have a healthier book associated with the neobanks. And with that in tandem, Federal can also grow, that too without
Yeah.
effort. So it's just
Yeah.
like getting the speed of change that's happening in the banking ecosystem without having to spend the amount of money that typically newer players have to spend.
Yeah.
So, but
In
that
fact,
must
they've
be
stopped
reflected in
spending
energy.
as much. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So even in terms of like capex, before Srinivasan joined, they had maybe 600 branches and 600 ATMs. That quickly doubled in the decade that followed. Sorry, not decade, the 5, 7 years that followed. But come 2018, they stopped all stupid spending on branches. So between 2018 and 2023, they maybe opened a total of 60, 70 branches and 60, 70 ATMs because they realized that having that 1200, 1300 bank of ATMs and branches was sufficient to sustain their more forward-looking goals, which is being digital, and that's where they averted their spending towards the API systems. They have done that as well. Like they've preemptively stopped spending on stuff that will not make them money later.
So they'll naturally have like higher growth rates, better cost to income ratios.
Yeah.
Maybe not because they'll have to shell out in the partnerships.
In
Um,
fact, you're right because cost to income is increased in
Cost
this
to income
last
ratio
decade.
will not be that good
Yeah.
because they'll have to share half their revenue or whatever the deal is. I'm not sure of how
Yeah.
much they split, but because they're not spending the money, they're just giving the underlying infrastructure. They'll have to
Yeah.
share revenue
Yeah.
heavily, which will up the cost to income. But so it'll be a place where cost to income ratios are higher than traditional banks, however,
Yeah.
lower compared to neobanks, much lower compared to neobanks.
Yeah.
But that gives you growth which is higher than traditional banks and equivalent to neobanks.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a nice sweet spot that they found.
yeah,
It's crazy.
Malupava.
Mallu power indeed. But unfortunately, I mean, after all this is said and done, if you look at like valuations or stock price, people aren't really seeing the potential in Federal Bank.
अभी 2.5x तो हो गया stock COVID से $60 to it has reached $150.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
ठीक है, valuation wise it's still
yeah. Like
lower.
while yeah,
Yeah.
lower than its regional players that are like quarter of the size. Like City Union and stuff, their loan books and deposits are literally one fourth, but they're trading at 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 times price to book, whereas they are at 1.3 or 1.2. And then their bigger players, which is IDFC and all that, is at 2.2, 2.3. So there clearly is a
Mm.
disconnect there that investors aren't yet recognizing the value and just still perceiving it as that Mallu bank or not
No,
knowing what it is at all.
either that or they must be a little averse on the entire neo-banking side, right? Because anybody
Yeah,
who, till the
yeah,
ecosystem matures a little bit, there's bound to be
yeah,
some amount of skepticism or um, that feeling that a disaster is about to strike.
mm,
Um, so maybe till and but that same argument could be true for something like an IDFC as well, which is going all out,
mm,
um, building creds book. Uh,
yeah.
but but that's not reflecting because they're valuing growth more. So probably Federal's time will come where they see that hey,
Mhm.
this small little Kerala player is actually
Yeah. Like they have the stones to make it big.
digital. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So pretty cool stuff on Federal Bank. But the only problem is now everyone's like skepticism is that Srinivasan, who's actually driven this entire growth period for 12 years, his period is lapsing in September 2024. So whether he'll be renewed and whether that attachment that exists with him being a valuable asset to Federal Bank and that maybe playing into investor sentiment in some form, whether that stays, whether that gets worse, or they hire someone better, or they renew the contract.
Banks now over time they're like I don't know how leader dependent they are really. I think there's
Yeah,
enough good leaders in the banking space
yeah, that's true.
and
So
people do
hopefully
come.
that won't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Plus, then he'll be on the board or something, no? Or not. He'll be
He'll
in
have
some
some
like
role to
yeah,
play.
capacity.
Like,
some
he
kind of
won't, like,
yeah, correct.
completely go off. He'll go to Neom and settle down.
He should, yeah. He's done his bit now.
Oh, disinterested.
If you did that Mac thing, I
Yeah,
think even
like
Tanvi can do it, right?
yeah, that's retarded.
It happened. Yeah, yeah. See, oh god. Now it'll celebrate. Yeah, yeah.
My favorite
Yeah.
people.
Juvenile kids we are.
Federal. Cool. So,
Okay.
any parting banking stories?
Laksh, do you have any questions you've been brooding?
No, no.
You are completely convinced with federal. No loopholes in our thesis or
No, yeah.
opinion or
He's going and opening an account, man. Oh, Jupyter download कर रहा है
right.
अभी.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
But
full
I'd
time
be
I was thinking what I'm doing with Canara Bank, bro.
What were you saying, Tanvi?
like I would be up to sign like make an account with a neo bank now.
Yeah,
अरे
right.
पर वो
It
सेल्स
seems
पर्सन नहीं है आयुष.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
She's not telling me.
Guilty
अभी
as
आयुष.
opening kite and investing in federal bank.
Yeah, हाँ bro, I
I
swear.
have, I did. I downloaded Kite. Look, I have Kite on my phone.
Wow.
Wow, we could see Tinder also over there.
I don't have Tinder, guys.
पर भाई इसको एक दिन में कल तो खोला है इसने और आज इतने ये भी हो गए. She has so many
No, that's her watch list.
holdings
Yeah,
also.
don't be holdings.
No,
Oh, I've
those are
invested 13,000. And then
yeah, yeah.
no,
But in one
guys,
stock, two stocks,
this is demo
No,
account.
5-6 na.
demo account. See, there's no chance. She would have said, she would have made a big, like, we would have celebrated this
Yeah,
in a meeting. That
I
she,
would have called you guys. You have invested like 1,000 rupees.
yeah.
No.
But don't invest
अब
right now. Wait, wait. Thoda wait.
अरे end the podcast then say all this. चलो bye.
Bye guys.
That's a wrap.